But we knew that Rachel was going to get an episode, quote unquote, just as we knew that at some point we were going to do an episode, featuring Art a little bit more. So that became him, in a slow speed chasing after an octogenarian. And that becomes part of what you can do in the second season. But I just liked the idea. She talked about what if, she has a sister who is dead and the brother-in-law was responsible and the brother-in-law goes missing or becomes a fugitive and they've got to find him. And it was just that nugget, or as some people would say, that story idea, that gave us an entire episode.
So in the writers' room, when you guys were, I guess, talking about it, was there any kind of, conflict on how you should go about but especially with her brother-in-law and stuff, any of those characters?
I don't know if there was any conflict. I mean, when we start off in August, we just put up all these ideas on the board, and then we start moving them around. Okay, when are we going to do that one with the old bank robber who's got the oxygen tank? When are we going to do the one about Rachel's brother-in-law? When are we going to do, and we start moving them around to get an idea of what the show order is going to be, and we saw, okay, we don't want to do this Rachel story too late. We want to move it up. So then it starts becoming a story that we're going to have to break soon. And, because I'm so imaginative in my writing casting, of course, when you're doing an episode about an African-American female, I ask the African-American female on the staff to write the episode. Because no one else could write it. No, but, anyone else could have, but not as well.
The thing about it, when I knew we were breaking that story, let me put it this way. Breaking any story in a writing on television is a team sport. So we go into that room on every episode and we break the story as if we're going to write it. At least I do. So when we started breaking Rachel's story, yes, of course, there was a little voice in me that said, oh my gosh, I hope I get to write this. But there's the other voices in me that say, look, if you don't, that's fine. Just break the story, and try to give her character as much as you can. I will
For a long while, it was going to be Dave Andron.
Was it?
No.
That's a frightening thought. No, he's wonderful. But I will say, I did feel an obligation to Rachel in the room. I didn't want to get too attached to it because I didn't want to in any way disservice her story, especially if I wasn't going to get to write it. I wanted to have the energy to come in for the next episode, and maybe I'll be writing that one. I didn't know. But on the other hand side, whenever I felt the energy in the room drop, or we were frustrated, or we were hitting a wall, I kept just trying to pick up the ball and run. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, if that idea doesn't work, let's try this one, and I just really, I wouldn't let it drop.
Well, and that's true, because what can happen sometimes, we've got that whole, and I'll use the Johnny Nutsack story that we're never going to do, that we broke a first episode, and man, we were ahead, and then we just went, no, we can't do this. First of all, it was called Johnny Nutsack, but anyway, and then went off and came back and ended up doing the first episode that we did. So there is always that risk that we can go pretty far down the road. Our 210, we had that whole safe surrender episode, and
we did. That's still a good episode.
Yeah, no, and we're going to bring it up early in season 3, but we got, so there was that risk. So Wendy, being the advocate of the episode, that was an important energy, and kept it alive.
Now, Wendy, during the writing of the episode, was there anything you wanted to change that that was in the room that you thought maybe, or did you actually change anything?
It goes through the process of the room, and then it sort of starts a whole new process. There's like 4 or 5 levels of writing processes that goes on in this. The room is the first run, and then you do your draft, and then there's subsequent drafts after that, and then you get on the set, and that's a whole nother run. So, I think for me, the joy when I got to actually sit down and write it was that I got to write so many black characters. It was amazing for me. That doesn't happen all the time as a black writer, to have 4 distinct black voices in one show. It's very rare, and to write them they were very targeted to what they were going to be. So that part was really joyous for me. But that didn't change. It was just part of the evolution.
How did the casting of Lawrence come about? Lorenz.
Oh, Lorenz?
Yeah, Lorenz.
I think he was pretty just,
Wendy has a crush on him.
yeah.
You know this is on tape, right? And he's married, and he has kids, and so am I. So it cancels each other out, Lorenz. No, just kidding. No, when I was thinking about the character of Clinton, I really wanted him to be, this is interesting to me, because I really wanted him to be a badass. You really wanted him to be you wanted him more sympathetic, and I understood that. And I kept thinking, well, Lorenz, oh yeah, because you see Lorenz and you like him. It's hard not to like him the minute that you see him. And I saw his run on Rescue Me, and I thought he was great, and so I just kept his vision in my mind as I was writing the character, because I could believe he would flip, but I also liked him. So I thought it maybe serviced both of the things we wanted to do.
And then that's, there's, a thing we have on the show, these little blue wristbands that say, what would Elmore do on them, WWED. It's not a World Wrestling Erectile Dysfunction thing. It's, Elmore likes that complexity. He would, you like someone, and yet they're capable of sudden and horrible violence. And, I forget, Amy will remember, the guy who he cast as Olander, the head of the halfway house. Joel McCreary is a big guy, and Lorenz is not a big guy. So it was like, wow, how is he going to take him down? Well, it ends up being a fantastic scene because of that. And so there's an unpredictability. You're not sure what's going to happen, what he's going to do, and what he's capable of, which again is part of the Elmore tradition.
Now there's a scene, one of my favorite scenes from the series. It's not in this episode. It's another episode where Rachel and Raylan are driving along, and then the Rachel character pretty much calls out Raylan for his position in society, basically his white privilege position in society. She challenges on him and tells him how he gets all these advantages in life that she doesn't get. How did that scene come about?
Well, there's that scene. There's two scenes that are similar, because even after 2 seasons, we're already repeating ourselves. But no, but there's a scene in our second episode of the first season where they're driving in a car, and no, actually it was in Dentist, wasn't it? When you're driving with Raylan, yeah. And how do you think it feels to have you come in and just walk right to the head of the line? How do you think it would be if I wore a hat like that? But there had been a previous scene where she says to him in the second episode, "Why the hat?" And the fact that she would ask him that, ask the question that we knew the audience would be asking, just established that she was not in awe of this guy. He's just the new marshal and the new deputy. And so, and then that later scene in the Dentist episode, 104, that was fun. And then we got to play that off at the end of the episode when he's asleep and she tries on the hat. But there was a scene in the first episode this year, which is the one I thought you were talking about, but because there is a similarity, where Rachel asked Raylan to go with her down to Harlan because she's searching for this pedophile, and he says okay because he wants to get away from his paperwork. But as they're driving down, she says, I'm uncomfortable with your people.
Oh, yeah.
And and this was something I had written the script. I'd done many drafts, and Wendy just pitched this in the room. What if in the car she said this?
Right. I had taken the liberty of going to Kentucky by myself last year because I wanted to see what it was like to be a black woman walking down the street of Harlan. I wanted to feel that. But I will say the thing that struck me, well, there were two things that struck me. One was that the people in Lexington had a prejudice against anyone from Harlan. I would tell them I was going to Harlan. They're like, why? What? Harlan? I mean, and I'm thinking, aren't you all from Kentucky? Don't you all like each other? And so that was one attitude that really stuck with me. I thought, well, we could give that to Rachel. And then the other one is I have one of my cousin's wives in Texas. She's a correctional officer. And she's the only black correctional officer in a really small Texas town. And she says the prisoners are always really nice to her as long as everything's going okay. But the minute the cuffs come out, that's when the racial slurs start going. That's when it gets dangerous. When the fear is there. And I thought, well, I'll pitch this because
Yeah, and it's like any well, I don't know if any writer's room, but someone pitches something and we all just kind of nod and go, oh yeah, that's good, let's put that in. And one of the fun things about that scene, because Rachel says to Raylan, yeah, everyone's ma'am this and ma'am that until the cuffs come out and then suddenly I'm a black bitch. And so so we get into a scene later on where Raylan and Rachel go to see Mags Bennett, played by Margot Martindale. And of course, Margot, being a great actress, reads the whole script. So she says to Rachel, would you like a drink, ma'am? And then when her son comes in, he says, hello, ma'am. And it was a nice thing that they had paid attention, and so they gave that extra little twist on the line, and it was like, okay, now we see exactly what she's talking about.
Now, Wendy, before this series, you worked on 2 other ones before.
I worked on Life for 2 years,
before that.
both seasons of Life.
Now, on each of those, were you the only African American writer on both?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I was. And it's interesting because I did have, in the second season of Life, I did co-write an episode that had a black female lead. But when we wrote it what they called colorblind. Do you know what I mean? It was cast
Yes.
black. And when I saw it, it was fine because, she was playing a military. She was someone in the military. So I was fine with it because she had that much character. But if I could do it all over again, I would write it to her. I would write it to I would add that extra layer of the black experience to it.
Add the color.
Yeah, I would. I would.
I want to tell a really quick self-serving story.
Okay.
I wrote a little movie called Speed, and I don't know if you remember it. Actually, I've talked at the middle schools up where we live, and the kids are like, "What? Yeah, I think my brother's seen that. It's the one with the bus and the bomb." Yeah, no, sir. Time goes by so fast. But when I wrote that, the character that ended up being played by Sandra Bullock, called Annie in the final script, because another writer came in for a while who I hate and shall not name. No, I don't hate. But bitter party of one. But no, it was. I wrote the character as Darlene, and she was African American, and she was a paramedic, and she drove an ambulance. So I just wanted to. I thought, okay, how am I going to explain that this woman's going to get in this bus driver's seat and be able to handle this behemoth and drive it well and crash through cars and stuff? So I thought, well, what if she was an ambulance driver, an EMT driver, so she knows how to do that? And I got the note from the studio that she'll go nameless, but it rhymes with Paramount. And no, but they said, can you make it colorblind? And I said, okay, sure, because it was my first script and I'm a weak boy. But and so then it ended up going to Turnaround. Fox picked it up, and when it was finally heading towards getting made, when they went out to casting, the first person they went to was Halle Berry, and she turned it down. And and she has not had a career since. But I always sort of chuckled at that. It was just like, okay.
Oh, she's smarter than you think. So, but on the show right now, are you the only African American writer right now?
No, we have VJ Boyd, who is I think he's in Texas right now.
Oh,
He
okay.
would have been here. He told me so.
Ran into him at the airport.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, we were anyway last week. Yeah, back down to Texas.
Yeah, so there are 2.
Oh, well, this is actually for Danielle down there. When it comes to just diversity at the FX networks on shows in general, how does the network go around to encourage it?
Well, Fox, FBC, which is our parent company, basically, has a program which is called the Diversity Writers Program, which has a workshop component to it, and also just sort of a staffing component to it. So at the very basic level, there is this effort made to make sure to have diverse voices on the show, that staff writers are brought in through the diversity writing program.
Wow.
So most of our shows participate in this program.
And that's how I got the job, because I'm Canadian. And that's
It is,
really,
Graham. It is.
people make fun of hockey in front of me. It's terrible.